There's a moment right before closeness when a man's body is here, but his mind drifts somewhere far away. He smiles, he touches, he breathes in the warmth of another body, but deep inside, something entirely different is happening. It's not just lust, it's not even love. It's a silent war waged between desire and fear, between the longing to connect and the terror of being truly seen. In that fragile moment, his heartbeat isn't just racing with passion, it's echoing with uncertainty. He wonders if this connection will make him feel whole, or if it will expose how hollow he really feels inside. He moves closer, yet part of him pulls away, afraid that intimacy might reveal the truth he hides even from himself. What truly happens inside a man's mind during sex? What are the emotions he'll never confess, not to his partner, not even in the quiet of his own thoughts? Beneath the surface of every touch, there lies a story of longing, pride, shame, and the desperate need to feel worthy of love. And what Carl Jung uncovered about this secret world of masculine intimacy still shakes the foundation of what we think we know about men today. Because what Jung found goes beyond sex. It exposes the conflict between power and vulnerability, the confusion between dominance and devotion, and the strange way men crave closeness, yet run from it. The act meant to unite two souls becomes the mirror that reveals the emptiness within, the loneliness that even passion cannot fill.
Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Yet for most men, that transformation never truly happens. They approach intimacy not as a moment of surrender, but as a performance, something to achieve, to control, to win. They chase connection through physical closeness, but their hearts remain guarded behind invisible walls. Jung observed this in countless men he worked with. Men who appeared strong, confident, even dominant, but who were secretly haunted by a deep loneliness. They could touch a body, but not the soul behind it. They could impress, but not reveal. Beneath their surface confidence lived a quiet fear. If she truly sees me, she won't desire me. Jung understood this fear as a symptom of the great inner divide, the split between the persona and the shadow. The persona is the mask a man wears, the image he carefully builds to be accepted by society. The shadow is everything he hides behind that mask, his insecurities, tenderness, and longing to be loved without conditions. In the act of intimacy, these two worlds collide. The man appears confident, but his unconscious trembles with doubt. He wants to lead, yet he yearns to be understood. That silent tension becomes the battlefield where desire and shame wrestle for control, leaving him both fulfilled and empty at once. In Jungian psychology, every man lives behind two faces, the persona and the shadow. The persona is the image he presents to the world, confident, capable, desirable, in control. It is the mask he believes will earn him respect, admiration, and love. But hidden behind that carefully built image lies the shadow, the secret vault of everything he fears, denies, or represses. It contains his doubts, insecurities, and unspoken need for tenderness. During intimacy, these two parts collide with quiet intensity. The persona wants to perform, to prove worth, to be desired.
The shadow longs to surrender, to feel safe, to be accepted without judgment. Most men never realize this inner conflict exists. They only sense it as a strange tension, a pressure to perform, a fear of losing control, an emptiness that lingers after the moment fades. Jung wrote, "Where love reigns, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." In that simple truth lies the tragedy of many modern relationships. When a man confuses control with connection, he loses the ability to love freely. When he hides his shadow, he hides the part of himself that is capable of true intimacy. And so he moves between extremes, between dominance and withdrawal, between wanting to merge and needing to disappear. The woman feels it as distance, but for him, it feels like survival. Because deep down, he fears that if his shadow is ever seen, he will no longer be worthy of love. Modern psychology continues to confirm what Jung saw more than a century ago. Beneath the surface of male desire lies a complex network of emotion, anxiety, and unspoken fear. Studies show that for many men, intimacy triggers not only pleasure, but also deep psychological conflict. It activates both the brain's reward centers and the same regions tied to stress and self-evaluation. In other words, even as a man seeks closeness, part of him braces for danger. This is because intimacy demands something that many men were never taught to give: vulnerability. To be emotionally naked feels more frightening than being physically exposed. From childhood, most men are conditioned to equate strength with silence and control with worth. They are praised for independence, not for tenderness. As a result, when they enter moments of deep connection, their unconscious mind rebels. It interprets openness as weakness, trust as risk, and surrender as loss of power. Psychologists call this emotional restriction normative male alexithymia, a difficulty expressing or even recognizing one's emotions. Jung would describe it as being possessed by the archetype of the hero, constantly battling to appear strong while secretly fearing collapse. In this inner war, sex often becomes the safest language to express love. Through action, he says what words cannot. But the tragedy is that when love must always wear the mask of performance, true intimacy becomes impossible. The man may win the moment, but lose the connection his soul was longing for all along.
Carl Jung believed that every man carries within him a hidden feminine essence called the Anima. She embodies emotion, intuition, sensitivity, and the deep capacity for connection, the very qualities that society often teaches men to suppress. When a man ignores or represses his anima, he doesn't simply deny a part of himself, he projects it onto the women around him. He doesn't see them as individuals, but as mirrors reflecting the lost parts of his own psyche. That projection can take many forms: idealization, fear, desire, or even resentment. During sex, this projection intensifies. What he believes is attraction or passion is often a subconscious attempt to reclaim what he has rejected within himself. The woman becomes a canvas for his own unmet emotional needs, and intimacy turns into a delicate dance of unconscious recognition and longing. Jung wrote,
Every man carries within him the eternal image of woman, not the image of this or that particular woman, but a definite feminine image. That image is the Anima reaching out, calling for acknowledgement and integration. When a man has not embraced his inner feminine, sexual intimacy can become confusing and even destructive. He may feel intense desire, followed by sudden fear, or an inexplicable need to withdraw. The deeper the connection grows, the more the shadow of his repression rises to the surface. Only by facing and integrating the Anima within himself can he experience intimacy as it was meant to be, not as projection, not as performance, but as authentic union, where desire and vulnerability coexist in balance.
When desire remains unintegrated, it carries a danger that most men never fully recognize. Jung observed that when a man's shadow and anima remain unconscious, his longing for intimacy can become distorted, twisted by fear, shame, and unmet emotional needs. He seeks connection, yet he approaches it through control, conquest, or validation. The act that should unite two souls instead becomes a battleground for his unresolved inner conflicts. He may chase after women, craving closeness, only to pull away when it is finally offered. He may seek admiration or sexual affirmation to fill a void that nothing external can satisfy. Jung warned, "The greater the light, the greater the shadow," and in sexual intimacy, that shadow manifests as confusion, anxiety, and emotional turbulence. Desire without awareness is a double-edged sword. It can ignite passion, yet leave a man emptier than before. It can create moments of connection, yet reinforce isolation if his inner conflicts are not acknowledged. Over time, unintegrated desire can evolve into patterns of repetition, attraction followed by withdrawal, love entwined with fear, passion entangled with shame. And the most insidious danger of all is that a man may lose touch with his capacity for true love, not because he is incapable, but because he has never faced the parts of himself that crave authentic intimacy. Until that inner work is done, sex remains both a mirror and a trap, reflecting the emptiness he carries and magnifying it with every encounter. Jung understood that only by integrating these hidden aspects of the psyche can desire transform from a source of conflict into a pathway for connection and wholeness.
For Carl Jung, the path to healing did not begin with changing behavior or trying to control desire. True transformation began with awareness, seeing oneself fully, without judgment. He called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of uniting the conscious self with the unconscious. It is the act of confronting the persona, the shadow, and the anima, and learning to embrace each without fear. For a man struggling with intimacy, this means asking difficult questions. Why do I crave connection, yet fear being seen? Which parts of myself am I hiding behind performance? What feelings do I refuse to acknowledge because they make me feel weak? Integration begins when he stops hiding and starts observing his inner world. Vulnerability is no longer a threat, but a bridge to deeper connection. Jung believed that when a man dares to meet his shadow, to recognize the anima within, He can enter intimacy without the need for control or performance. Sexual desire becomes a form of authentic expression rather than a compensatory act. He no longer chases validation or fears exposure because he has accepted himself completely. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." In this process, the deepest aspects of masculinity, strength, tenderness, courage, and sensitivity can coexist. Intimacy transforms from a battleground into a sanctuary. Connection is no longer measured by conquest or approval, but by presence, awareness, and mutual recognition. By embracing his inner world, a man can finally experience love and desire in their truest, most fulfilling form.
A man who avoids facing his shadow and ignores his anima often lives in cycles of attraction and withdrawal. He feels the pull of connection, the promise of intimacy, but when it arrives, he recoils. He might pursue a partner with intensity only to retreat when vulnerability becomes unavoidable. His relationships are marked by confusion and frustration, for him and for those who care about him. The emptiness he carries inside manifests as impatience, control, or emotional distance. Partners sense this invisible barrier, yet he cannot fully understand why he cannot stay present. Conversely, a man who has embraced his shadow and integrated his anima moves through intimacy with a quiet, grounded strength. He can enter connection without fear of losing himself or needing to dominate. He listens deeply, responds with empathy, and allows the other person to be fully themselves. Desire becomes a channel for genuine expression, rather than a tool for validation. This man experiences passion, but it is not frantic or performative. It is reflective, aware, and mutually fulfilling. Jung observed that such integration transforms not only the quality of relationships, but also the man's sense of self. He no longer relies on performance or projection to feel worthy. In contrast, disintegration traps men in patterns of repetition, anxiety, and unfulfilled longing. Intimacy becomes a mirror of their unresolved inner conflicts, reflecting fear as desire and absence as connection. The difference is subtle but profound. Integration brings wholeness, presence, and the ability to love deeply, while disintegration perpetuates emptiness, confusion, and missed opportunity for authentic union. So, what truly happens inside a man's mind during sex? It is not only desire that stirs, but a deeper, quieter longing, a yearning for connection, understanding, and acceptance. It is not merely control or dominance, but the fear of being fully seen and still being loved. The emotions he experiences are complex, layered, and often contradictory. Jung's work reveals that the challenges men face in intimacy are not flaws, but reflections of an unintegrated self. When a man has not embraced his shadow or acknowledged his anima, intimacy becomes both a mirror and a maze. He longs to connect, yet he is haunted by fear and shame. He wants to love, yet he holds back, protecting himself from perceived rejection. True healing and authentic connection begin when a man faces these hidden parts of himself with courage and compassion. Integration transforms sex from a performance into a sacred exchange, a place where vulnerability and desire coexist. When a man accepts both his light and shadow,
He no longer seeks validation through control or performance. He becomes capable of presence, empathy, and deep intimacy. Jung's message is clear. The journey inward is the only path to authentic connection outward. If you recognize yourself in this description, it is not a sign of weakness, but a call to explore the hidden depths within. Ask yourself, do you love to connect, or do you connect to feel worthy of love? That awareness can change everything. True intimacy is not about conquering another person. It is about embracing your own wholeness and allowing that presence to meet someone else fully. In doing so, the act of sex transforms into an opportunity for growth, understanding, and sacred connection, bridging the gap between fear and love, loneliness and unity.